Conditions May Apply by CinnamonPinecones. Read by Distracted by Books. Chapter 32. Oh, somebody! Oh, he needs some milk! Izuku woke up to his alarm the next morning to DJ loafed in the same spot he remembered her being yesterday afternoon. Kami, he slept for over 12 hours. Whether DJ had stayed there the whole time or she left and came back was impossible to tell. Either way, it was incredibly adorable, so Izuku grabbed a few treats and set them in front of her. Was she watching over him to make sure he was all right? Kami, she was so precious. There was no reason for her to be down here right now. The heater wasn't on, spring was in full swing, and it wasn't cold outside at all. So unless it was raining, she just was here of her own volition. He almost didn't want to go out and check, but he needed to go to the library. He needed to send a fake email from his mom to the school, either excusing him for the whole day or from gym until further notice. Hopefully it worked, and they wouldn't look too far into it. The pain radiating from his side told him he was going to have to excuse himself for the day. Dang, he couldn't go out not like this. What was he going to tell Eraser? Wait, what did Eraser say about last night? Eraserhead, 2:42 p.m. Not that I'm complaining, but why the change of heart? Eraserhead, 3:01 p.m. You all right, kid? Eraserhead, 6:36 p.m. I'm not going to find you dead in some back alley, right? Eraserhead, 10:43 p.m. I'm choosing to believe you're asleep. Please confirm that you're not dead at your leisure. Kami, he could sense the sarcasm in that last message. Was he worried about him? Why the heck would he be worried about him? Ivy, 6:05 a.m. Yes, I'm alive. I was sleeping. Thought that's what you wanted. He shot off a message to assuage his concern before he prepped himself for the long trek to the library. His side ached with every movement, and his back hurt from lying down for so long. It was probably for the best he moved around a little so the wound didn't heal too tightly. He didn't want the scar to affect his mobility, but that didn't make it hurt any less right now. Eraser didn't get back to him until he was over halfway to the library. Eraserhead, 6:17 a.m. For 15 hours? Ivy, 6:17 a.m. Maybe I was. What's it to you? Kami, he was asleep for 15 hours. That had to be a new record. He needed to come up with a story because he wasn't going to be able to go out for a few days, at the very least. He couldn't even make it to the library without sweating buckets. There was no way he could patrol like this. The injuries he got as a child had him bedbound for a week, and that was with professional medical treatment. Dang. Dang, Katsuki, what the hell was his problem, and why did he have to make it Izuku's problem as well? Why couldn't he just leave him the heck alone? Eraserhead, 6:19 a.m. Are you all right? Kami, he just had to keep asking. What the heck was he supposed to tell him? What do people normally call off work, quote unquote, for without raising suspicion? He's not about to text back, oh, yeah, no, I'm sporting a new third-degree burn, courtesy of my childhood best friend, and I don't have access to any medical treatment, so I'm going to be down for the count for a bit, maybe forever, depending on if it gets infected or not. But don't worry, there's like an 89% chance I'll see you next week. God dang, Katsuki. Screw him and his stupid quirk and his stupid attitude and his stupid anger issues and his stupid obsession with making Zuko's life a living hell. He needed to calm down before he got any closer to the library. Apparently, he'd been doing a good job of concealing his emotions before he even knew it was an issue, so he shouldn't be so worried about it, but he really didn't want Shinso-san asking questions, nor did he want to make her feel the anger that was currently burning in his chest. Anger was an awful emotion, and he had it in droves. Lately, he'd been channeling that anger into running around the city, but now it was just festering. He took a moment to sit on a bus stop bench to collect himself. Kami, how was he already exhausted? He should have taken a break earlier. Whatever. Too late now. What should he tell Eraser? He's sick? That was close enough to the truth, but the man was starting to act like a damn mother hen with all his insistence on breaks and following around like a babysitter every night. He wouldn't be surprised if he found a way to track him down, bust open the door, and force feed him chicken noodle soup or something. It was nice, but the less Eraser knew about him, the safer he would be. Ivy, 6:28 a.m. I'm fine. Family emergency. Gonna be out of town for a few days. I'll let you know when I get back. There. Shift the concern to a third party that he can't fact check. Eraserhead, 6:31 a.m. All right. I'll patrol as normal until you're back. I'll keep you updated if anything major happens. Oh, that was... He didn't even realize how stressed out he was about Uptown until the weight was lifted off his shoulders. He really didn't have to do that. He could go back to his old cushy neighborhood patrol. It was probably much easier, but he was going to stay, and he was going to let him know if something went wrong. That... Kami. He felt like he could breathe again. The ladies wouldn't have to walk themselves home, and... Damn it! Since when did he trust Eraser enough to look after his district for him? Ivy, 6:32 a.m. Thanks. He was too tired to deal with people right now. Midoriya was late. He was usually at the library a bit before it opened, but it was 5 minutes past, and he was nowhere to be seen. The last time he didn't show up to the library, he was gone for several days, and when he came back, he broke down crying and then hardly talked to Hitoshi for months. He still had no clue what caused that to happen, and he was too afraid to ask. Their friendship was strained given how socially inept they both were, and he didn't want to make it any worse. Hopefully, he was just running late, and everything was fine. Everything was not fine. At 6:43, Midoriya strolled into the computer room, pale and sweating. It was early in the morning in spring. It couldn't be more than like 68 degrees out. He shouldn't be sweating that much. He looked like he was about to pass out. Midoriya, are you okay? He asked before he had a chance to think better of it. Greenie looked up at him with wide eyes. Yeah, I'm fine. I think I might be a little sick, he said without making eye contact. That was an understatement. He looked like a ghost. What are you doing here if you're sick, Midoriya? You should go home. Do your parents know you're sick? Hitoshi asked. Midoriya let out a soft laugh as he sat down in his usual spot. They don't care. I'm gonna use the computer to send a fake email to school and go back home, he said with a dazed look before snapping his mouth shut like he didn't mean to say that. That was, concerning. Are you sure that's a good idea? Won't you get in trouble? Midoriya buried his face in his hands for a moment before sighing. Problem for later me, he responded as he typed away on the keyboard. Hitoshi was at a loss for what to do. He should do something, right? This wasn't good. Midoriya shouldn't have to trick the school and his parents in order to stay home. Why don't his parents care? Oh no. Were they the reason he came in with a black eye all those months ago? Is that why he was always so jumpy and afraid? This was not painting a good picture. He needed to say something. He needed to do something. Midoriya, are you safe? At home, I mean, he blurted out inelegantly. Greenie looked over at him and shot him a sad smile. Yeah, Shinso, I'm safe at home. My parents are just never around, he replied before going back to crafting a fake email. Never around? What does he mean by that? The way he said it implied that they hadn't been around for a while, but they were just barely old enough to be left home alone. Still, leaving a kid home alone is better than actively abusing him, right? Kinda. Well, neither were good, but it's the lesser of two evils. He should tell his mom. He shouldn't let Midoriya go back to an empty house like this. What if they didn't have the medicine he needed? Was he going to have to go to the store by himself? And was he going to have to make his own meals? He needed to rest. He needed help. He looked like he was about to keel over. An uncomfortable silence fell for a few moments before Hitoshi made some BS excuse and went to go find his mom. He found her back in the stacks on the other side of the library, and she was already looking around with a worried expression as he approached. Concern must have been radiating off of him because he was making no effort to force it down. What's the matter, Toshi? She asked, abandoning her task. He stood there for a moment, running his hands through his messy hair, unsure where to start. It's Midoriya. He's sick. He looks awful, and I don't think he meant to. Well, I asked him. He said his parents... Gah! Struggling against his words, he took a moment to collect himself. He said he's sending a fake email to his school to excuse him from classes because he's sick and his parents don't care. So I asked him if he was safe at home because I was worried that the black eye was... Well, he said he's fine, but his parents are, quote, never around. But he doesn't look well. And if no one's at home, I don't know. I want him to be okay. Kami, that was a mess of an explanation. He was wringing his hands together, and his mom was already leading him back to the computer room. Maybe they could let him sleep in the back room, or maybe his mom could call someone to cover her shift and they could take him back to their house. Or maybe he could at least go to the corner store and send Midoriya home with the right medicines and some microwave soups or something. He was devising several plans at once. He didn't know what his mom wanted to do, but they had to do something. Turning the corner into the computer room, his heart dropped. Midoriya was gone. Damn it, he should have known. He's not stupid. Of course he knew Hitoshi was going to start fretting and go get his mom. And of course he wouldn't want to feel like a burden. And of course he was going to run away from help. He was Midoriya. He'd never once comfortably accepted kindness in any form. Kami, what was he thinking? It all made sense now, too. How would he know how to accept help or kindness if he never got it? He didn't even have his number, and he had no clue where he lived. There was nothing they could do except wait for him to come back. After peeking out the front door and looking for the familiar mop of green hair, to no avail, he resigned himself to living in a constant state of worry until he saw Midoriya again. Well, he just made a royal mess of that. So much for not tipping off anyone's concern. He'd sent an email saying he ended up in the hospital and he was excused for the rest of the week, or until he felt well enough to return. He was really hoping no one cared enough to hound him for documentation for any of those claims, because he would absolutely have no clue how to fake that. This entire plan was dangling off a hope and a prayer, but he was so damn tired and in so much pain that he didn't care. He was going to need to stop by some store and pick up some gauze and alcohol with a 5-finger discount. He clearly didn't have it in him to not look like he was about to pass out, given Shinso's immediate reaction. So this was going to be really difficult. If he was attracting attention as is, shoplifting was not going to be easy, but he didn't have a choice. Once again, dangling by a hope and a prayer, he walked into the store with his head down. He went through several aisles, making an effort to look as casual as possible before he slipped the things he needed into his pocket and leisurely strolled out of the store. If the teenage cashier noticed anything, they didn't care enough to stop him. Thank Kami. At least something could go right for him. The subsequent days were an agonizing cycle of undressing, cleaning, and redressing the burn. He spent most of the time sleeping, waking up only long enough to tend to the wound and slurp down his quickly dwindling stash of nutrient packets. He really needed to get more food if he was going to heal properly, because sleeping clearly wasn't going to replenish his energy. It was only going to get worse if he let his blood sugar completely plummet on top of his exhaustion, and he only had one more packet left. It was around 4 p.m. on Thursday when he came to this conclusion. He couldn't afford to buy any food, and no one would be passing it out until places started closing down. But he didn't want to be caught out in the dark. With his luck, Eraserhead would swoop down and insist on walking him home. He'd yet to get any updates from the man, so he assumed everything was carrying on as it normally did in Uptown. With all other options ruled out, he needed to find some food to steal. That was one downside of squatting in the warehouse district. He had to walk so far to get any food. Resigned to his fate, he got dressed and let the sun fall on him for the first time in days. The walk made him realize how much better he felt already. Sure, he was tired, but he wasn't panting and sweating through his hoodie like he was a few days ago when he walked to the library. Hopefully, he'd be back by Monday. End of chapter.